All right. Good evening, brothers. We're going to give it a couple minutes as we turn on the live stream on all the different channels: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, uh, probably some other corners of the internet that I'm less aware of. uh, but thank y'all to anyone who's here and viewing us so far, or anyone who will be joining us this evening. And we're just going to give it another minute or two as this goes live, as it does look like it is live. I can see we're recording. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. Happy Founders Day, brothers. I'm Thomas Fox. Omicron 2000, that means I initiated into the University of Illinois chapter, and I serve as the executive director of Psi Upsilon Fraternity. And I'm excited because today Psi Upsilon turns 191 years old. And I wanted to take a moment to start off this evening just to talk about that and what happened on November 24th, 1833, and why we consider that our founding date in Psi Upsilon. Whenever I talk about history with students or others, I always try to explain. I get very fascinated by how things start and why things exist. So I'll spend some time looking into it. I like to read biographies a lot, and just what I've been able to learn from working in this job and this role and reading about the history of Psi Upsilon is we really do have a great story and something that we all are and should be proud of. So let's go back in time. Let's talk about what a college experience looked like back in the 1800s. And let's talk about Union College and its environment. By 1833, Union was considered an old and established college. It had been founded almost 40 years before that in 1795. Um, it also was a little bit odd in the way it was founded, as most colleges in the United States were started by a church. Union College was not started by a church. It was actually 13 area churches that banded together, and thus it was named Union. And that would actually be considered very progressive and open minded for that time period, to not be tied to a specific church, but be tied to many in the area. Um, and we have to imagine in the 1800s, college was not the same experience that it is today. Students had much less choice classes. You were given a set schedule, and it would often be predominantly theology and ancient languages. Greek and Latin would be stressed. Philosophy. There might be some teaching of natural philosophy, which is similar to what we would consider very basic sciences. History, English, and contemporary English. Uh, One thing that set Union a bit apart, though, it was heavily influenced by some other New York colleges in the area. And mainly when I say that, West Point, which was not far away. West Point is actually the oldest engineering school in the United States. Obviously, it became a military academy, so we still don't think of it that way. But when it was founded, it was much more of a practical knowledge school. And that would be the term that would be used in the 1800s to describe what we call now math and sciences, practical knowledge. There were a couple colleges that would teach that, but it was not a normal part of the curriculum. But Union was one of those colleges that brought it in. Still, though, very, very, very leaning to liberal arts and sciences. You're going to learn a lot more Greek than math at Union College in the 1830s. You also wouldn't have much free time as a student. You'd have class all day, and in the afternoon, even evenings, weekends, you'd often be an apprentice or otherwise work wherever you were lodging in the Schenectady area. Um, there weren't extracurricular activities at this time period. Uh, Organized sports weren't a part of college. And I believe Yale created a rowing club in 1840 something, and that's considered the first collegiate sport. So we were a ways before that happened. Uh, and while there were some clubs, they were what we would call literary societies. But they would be much like what we would think of as in an English class, especially a creative writing class today or a debate class today. And were often actually led by faculty and not the students. In fact, all the founders of Psi Upsilon were a member of something called the Delphian Institute, one of the literary societies that was on campus at Union College at the time. And it is from this highly structured environment that not only Psi Upsilon, but the fraternal movement in general was born. Union College is called the mother of all college fraternities, as it is where the first still existing college fraternity was founded. That was Kappa Alpha Society, which started in 1825, 8 years before us. Soon after that, two more societies started, Sigma Phi and Delta Phi, both in 1827. Um, the president of Union College was instrumental in the formation of fraternities. His name was Dr. Eliphalet Knott, and he wrote about them. It is impossible to longer restrain them, so I have decided to lead them and train them to useful ends. There's no doubt in my mind that at other colleges in the US, organizations like fraternities were starting, but often the politics of the college, the administration of the college, would not allow them to continue on, so they'd often die out. In fact, more fraternities were founded at Union College than any other college. Uh, I mentioned Kappa Alpha Society, Sigma Phi, Delta Phi. We were founded in 1833, and then soon after us, Chi Psi Fraternity, and then Theta Delta Chi. That's six fraternities founded at Union College. No other college approaches that. And this was all done while Dr. Eliphalet Knott was president of the college. Um, Now, we also need to understand the size of a college back then, because that also was vastly different. Union College in 1833 had 232 students, and that would have been the largest college in the United States at that time period. Often Union and Yale were very, very close in size at that time period, but it wasn't until sometime that Yale started becoming larger. But many colleges were definitely under 200 students. Um, Now, one thing that separates Psi Upsilon from the other societies that existed at Union College in 1833 is our founders, well, the original founders were all sophomores and then also brought in freshmen. Everyone was a member of the first or second year. None of the other societies, the other fraternities on campus, would admit underclassmen. They were only for upperclassmen, which really led to our success. In fact, our Constitution, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more in a second, was signed in 1834. We were at 20 members at that time. 10 more joined the next year in 1835, which brought us over 30 members in the chapter, which would be 10% of the student body. Um, and that, those of us, I'm sure we all greatly remember our founders pledge that we took when we started joining Psi Upsilon. But I want to read a moment from that, because that is the story of where our fraternity comes from. It starts with an early meeting before November 24th, 1833. But it talks about the group that would start Psi Upsilon. So this comes from Clarkson Knott Potter, the grandson of Dr. Livlet Knott. He was a member of Theta chapter class of 1842. And the story that he heard goes as such. Toward the close of a summer day, a young man was looking out of an upper window. Just then, another student entered, and the two friends fell to talking of the beauty of the scenery and the college and college affairs. Presently, two others joined them, and their conversation turned upon the need there was for a new society. At last, it grew dark, and the visitors arose to leave. It had been fully decided that these young men would endeavor to establish a new fraternity. "Good night, thine cordially," said the visitors as they departed. "Good night, thine always," to each the one who remained responded. It was thus, as I have heard, that our fraternity was first suggested. And something that I find interesting is almost certainly the building that happened in still exists today. At Union College, there is a part of campus called West College that would have existed, was built in the 1820s, and would have been the building that those students would have had that conversation in. And it is still there today. But then our Founders Pledge moves on and talks about November 24th, 1833, the day we consider our Founders Day. Brother William Taylor, Theta 1838, wrote of the history of Psi Upsilon fraternity. And I've got a copy of it here in the office. And the history of Psi Upsilon starts with this story. Several of the students of Union College, members of the sophomore class of 1833 and belonging to the Delphian Institute, being desirous of a more close and friendly intercourse than afforded by that association, determined to unite themselves into a club or secret society. The first record of their meeting is the following words: "We, the undersigned, having a determination to form a secret society, and having some conversation on the subject, do now and hereby pledge our sacred honors that we will keep all that has been said and done a most profound secret, and that at or before the beginning of the next term we will meet and form a society." And brothers, they signed that pledge. And that is what we call our Founders Pledge on November 24th, 1833. And that is why we consider today the founding of Psi Upsilon. These young men were just figuring out what fraternity was. Well, there were some examples from other societies on campus. There weren't many, and fraternity was not established in our country. So they were just learning as they went along. It wasn't until a couple of years later that they actually adopted a couple months later, that they adopted our Constitution, and they actually came up with the name Psi Upsilon. That happened on January 10th, 1834. And, well, might as well show it off. We've got a copy of that Constitution here in the office as well. And like I said, many more than 7 signed this Constitution. And this is what gives us our name, Psi Upsilon, came up with our mission and purpose, and all that happened. But on November 24th, 1833, 7 young men at Union College decided to take that step. And that's why we're here today. And that's the story of how we were founded. So we're going to jump ahead and now talk about where we are and where we want to go. And to do that properly, we've invited some of the leadership of Psi Upsilon to join us. So Jonathan backstage, if you could introduce Tim and Alex to the chat, that would be great. I love this fact that we're live streaming on social media channels across the country because I can tell you our around the world. What am I saying? Across the country, our founders in 1833. This would utterly blow their mind. All right.
The fact that I got the technology to work utterly blows my mind as well.
we sometimes come at this like we were at Union College in 1833.
Truly, yes.
But I thought we'd just start and go around, and I'd let both of you introduce yourself to everyone here with us tonight. So let's start in alphabetical order. Alex, if you'd introduce yourself, tell us where you're at, who you are, what you do professionally, when you're not helping run Psi Upsilon.
So I graduated from Lehigh, the ADA, in 2006. I live here in Boston, Massachusetts now after time in San Francisco about 15 years ago, and love it. My wife and 2 kids are with me here just outside of the door. If you hear them, I'm so sorry. But so my role when I'm not working with Psi U is I work with higher education deans and presidents on thinking through big changes to their world. So I work in higher education, predominantly with universities that are that have big existential challenges or questions about their how they move forward. Most of my work is with external affairs, so alumni development, partnerships, and I work a lot with organizations that are not your conventional alumni associations that will not help fund your next project. So a lot of very interesting, unique scenarios.
Awesome. All right. Tim, how about yourself?
Evening, everyone. Tim Zepp, Chi Delta Duke, class of 2008. So I was recently elected the president of the executive council this past July, sorry. But I've been a longtime volunteer at Psi U on the executive council and foundation boards. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and when I'm not working for Psi U, I work in investment banking, covering restaurants, do a lot of fun trips around the country, meeting clients and eating some great food and checking out new and upcoming concepts. So great to be with you all.
Great. And thank you both so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate taking the time, especially on a Sunday evening. But all right, well, let's just dive in here and have some, and this is meant to be a very open-ended conversation, and conversation's a key word. So anyone thinks of anything, please just talk over me as soon as you can. But let's start. What got you all to join Psi Upsilon? Why did you join Psi Upsilon at Duke, Tim?
Well, for me, it was so I had a friend, a really good friend who lived across the hall from me. And I would notice that every Friday and Saturday evenings, he was kind of heading out somewhere. At Duke, all the freshmen live on what's called East Campus, about a mile or two away from West Campus, where all the upperclassmen live. So he was heading out every weekend, and I was wondering, like, what's going on. Eventually, he told me what he was up to. He had met a group of people, and they were playing some board games and just hanging out in the evenings there. And he's like, "Oh, well, by the way, you should come along." And I'm like, "Oh, well, thanks for the invite." So finally made a trip over and met. So I didn't realize it was a fraternity at the time. I think actually back at that Duke, most folks it was the fraternity of people who did not think that they were going to be joining a fraternity. But yeah, made the introduction, made some great friends, and before I knew it, I was quote unquote rushing Again, something I had no idea what that was or why I was doing it, but but turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life. And so kind of fast forward, a couple of years was leading that fraternity group. I had no idea why I was joining or what it was, and then obviously zoom forward to today. So that was a little bit.
Tim, were you going to go Greek when you enrolled at Duke?
No, definitely not. Not that I had a particular aversion to it, but I just didn't really know what it was all about. I was also surprised when I joined when I met the people at that group in Psi U. I saw a lot of women, and I was like, I didn't realize that women could join fraternities, and so Duke's one of our co-ed chapters. I since learned, and
sure.
At the time I had no idea that was a thing, and again, didn't really have any coming into it. Set notion of doing one thing or the other, but it was kind of cool to meet a pretty diverse group of people, and obviously folks that I enjoyed kind of hanging out with, and the rest is history.
Okay. Was it that similar to your story, Alex?
Yeah, I look. I went to Lehigh with a very clear, at the time, very clear definition of who I was. And knowing I did not want to surround myself with people who were all in the same trajectory as me. That's why I went to Lehigh. And so when I started looking around at what the social scene was, it was very important to me to be around a lot of people from different points of view and life experiences. And that's what drove me towards Psi U over the other fraternities, or any fraternity at all, frankly. I didn't really think I would ever join a fraternity. And it was, and I would say that to just piggyback off the question, I had moments during my first few months and even years that I didn't really know that I questioned whether or not I was going to make it, and sort of be a brother. And it was only until I realized that I was accepted, and all of my quirky, weird, engagements at Lehigh were being embraced, if not encouraged, by the guys in the house. Not always, embraced and encouraged, but also they embraced me, and encouraged me to be better than even what I thought was possible. So I continued to be that outlier, but they wanted that, and I think that's one of the things that makes Psi U so valuable is the fact that you are pushed beyond the who you think you can be. You're pushed with your friends and with people who just want you to be happy. And so I just add that I never did I think I would join, and I had many moments of saying, why am I even here? Until I realized why I'm here, and it's the friendships.
Yep. And that hits so many nails on the head, what both of you said. When I think about Psi Upsilon and fraternity, and quite frankly, the importance of it today, it's built around so much of this, and especially what you said at the end, the friendships. We read time and time again, students coming to campus, and this definitely exists in the post-COVID world we have now, but absolutely was true beforehand. The number one fear students have when they come to a college campus is feeling lonely. And organizations like ours, well, we're these small cohorts of friends on a campus that grow. Unlike a lot of friend groups, you kind of meet your dorm floor and you progress together throughout the years in the same way. Fraternities, we constantly bring new people in and people leave, and you see a bit more development through that. But I think we do a great job of that, and it's one of the many things I think about of why fraternity just matters and why it makes a great impact on our college campuses. Um, are there any other any stories any of you have of a moment in time that really made a difference to you, or a person who made a difference to you during your undergraduate experience?
Tim?
There were a couple. There were a couple young alumni who came back to the chapter quite often, and I found sometimes it's hard to pin down an exact moment, but sometimes just so at Duke, one of the things that all the fraternities and living group had a bench outside their section. We all lived in sections of a dorm. Nobody had had a separate house. And I remember, many evenings just kind of sitting outside. Sometimes on the weekends, folks would come down and didn't have any particular time. I had to wake up the next morning. You're just sitting out outside on the bench for hours, talking to folks about, either just random topics of the moment, or the random, seemingly life-altering drama that was happening in the chapter that in hindsight was not really that big of a deal. Or picking their brain about life, like what was it like, living in a new city and navigating their first job, and how did they find their job? Because I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do after graduating and all that. A lot of little moments like that I think just in hindsight were very helpful in helping me find my path. And also giving me some diverse perspectives. One of the things that Alex was saying when he earlier about how he felt like he was a little bit different than the group, but that was what the group kind of wanted. I think one of the nice things that I got through my Psi U experience was exposure to kind of a diverse group of thought and perspectives. Like there were people from many different majors, people who were taking classes and studying things that are very, very far away from what I was studying as an engineer at the time. I started engineering. I now work in banking, so polar opposites in many ways. But I think exposure to a bunch of different perspectives and ideas from folks that I probably would never have run into, in my normal course of undergraduate experience if it were not for the fraternity. I think helped me, fairly well-rounded and hopefully better, much better forward in my professional life and in many ways, after graduating. So and I think the alumni were a big part of that too, who they would just come back and, some of them just were looking for, wanted to give back. Some people just kind of, love to come back for different events and reconnect with folks and meet a new generation of folks at the chapter. But I think those were very, very helpful in kind of developing that experience.
Yeah, I actually think that I was a very poor brother in my undergraduate years, and something that I think about a lot, and talk to a bunch of brothers about. But I also had other foci, and it wasn't until I moved from the East Coast to San Francisco as a 25, 26-year-old that I really felt like Psi U was the place for me. It was a time when I moved out of my comfort zone, and I made a new life in San Francisco, and a couple of the entire executive council came out to San Francisco, and I think there was an open call to anybody in the area of, let's get together. And I made the recommendation of going to a certain place, and we went there, and I learned what incredible people are part of this organization, and selflessly and completely, without really knowing who I was, just opened up. And again, this is now after I graduated. It was like being reinitiated to an organization, where I felt very much that I loved, but this was on another level. And for a couple of days, being able to both be host and be hosted by members of the executive council and the foundation together, which I didn't really know the difference between the two, but a really extraordinary moment of people coming together for the betterment of this organization, asking questions and being interested in how can we do more, and who are we today, in a area of the country that we did not have. I mean, we have a few chapters, but this is not the, this was not with a ulterior motive. This was a pure ask. And I have to say that it was at that point that I really doubled down on Psi U, quadrupled down on Psi U, because I know, and some of those people are not even with us anymore, but there was a true love of the essence of this organization that made me completely engrossed. And Tim, you and I think we had dinner at Coletto's, down in the on Powell Street, at the end of that conference. And that's what kind of started our friendship. And Tom, you and I had been friends for a long time, but you were there, and those kind of synergistic moments. I think, Tim, you said it brilliantly in your undergraduate years, but it's those moments when things connect that you don't really expect to connect, and you recognize the value of those connections that is very much important in one's life.
And I do have to interject, Alex, you weren't that terrible of an undergraduate, because I remember when you were an undergraduate meeting you, and you asking for more programming and health and wellness programming.
Have I stopped asking for the same thing?
Yeah. But no, that is fascinating. I hear what I'm hearing too. It comes back to the people, the connections we make with one another. I know that's part of my story too, and it's probably some of the same people that you bring up. I remember joining Psi Upsilon as a freshman. Our pledge period started in September, and a month later was this thing called homecoming. And I met this force of nature by the name of Lou Finkelstein. And that absolutely changed my life, because I would not be sitting here today in this role if I didn't meet that man at homecoming, who was interested in who we were as members joining, looking to have a good time well in Champaign, but also talking to us about what we're doing to better the organization. And are we putting it in the time we should, or are we just looking for it as a social outlet? And he got all that done in one weekend. And over the next 4 years, every year I would talk to him once or twice. And when the opportunity came up to do something after college, I was applying to a few very different jobs, mostly in sales. And he said, no, you should come work for Psi Upsilon. They have a position open. I know some people. I can help get you the interview.
Yeah.
But alums like him, Brad Corner, there was another alum who passed away before I started working for Psi U by the name of Bill King. They're just instrumental to both our organization, but us as the Omicron. But that's what I realized. They cared about the international organization. It was so much more than just Champaign Urbana.
That night in San Francisco was orchestrated by Lou, I have to say what I remember of it was all Lou.
He was a good social chair for us, that's for sure.
He was. But Tom, to your point, I would also say that this is an organization of people. There's no doubt. We may have housing at some campuses, and we have wonderful chapter corporations, and we have physical assets. But at the very best and at the very least, we are a organization of people. And I think that was one of the biggest things for the change in my mentality, was from being this wonderful little clubhouse of people on a small campus to being an organization that is international on all continents, with wide-ranging people who are doing interesting things, and also the motivation of multiple different avenues. Just seeing people who were not motivated by one individual reason to be a part of this, but also just the number of different reasons that people had. And that's always been the reason that I've been driven to help support anything that comes before us. Any idea that somebody has, let's take a look and see what we can do, because it's not about the framework of yesteryear or what we think of ourselves. We can morph, as you've said. What we can be is not who we were.
Yeah.
And something you were saying about just that click about having, I would use the words almost like this, the big tent Psi U that I've heard, when I first joined the foundation board. Sam Tenaglia was the chair of the foundation. He would say that a lot, talk about big tent Psi U, and one of the things that really clicked for me with my first, really, I guess two things. My first convention, but then I think the following January, attending Archons Academy, just the opportunity to meet folks from a whole bunch of different chapters, many of which were very unlike my own. And I sort of would go into it with some preconceived notions of some of the fraternities on my campus that were maybe had more, were full of members from certain sports teams, or just had a very different personality than mine. And it's like, oh, well, I don't want to hang out with those people. They're different than me or whatnot. But then, interacting with all these Psi U's that, on paper were very, very different individuals than I was. But the moment that, I sort of let, drop some of those preconceived notions and actually interacted with them and just get to know them a bit more, realize, wait a second, this is an amazing organization that, these are great people.
Yeah.
And just the opportunity to kind of have that interaction, at the undergraduate level, and then, in a convention where, it's kind of intergenerational, interacting with folks who, were, 70, 80 years old, attending their 40th or 50th convention, was fascinating to me as like, a 20-year-old. And I think it's just a really cool thing that honestly, a lot of people, in their kind of undergraduate years don't have exposure to those sort of different opportunities. And so it's kind of a great experience in so many ways.
I think it's one of the few organizations, and across the board of all civic organizations that I've been a part of in my life, we are by far the most accepting, if not validating, of intergenerational connection, and and that is taking into account churches and synagogues. But I truly believe, in my lifetime, I can say we value the intergenerational connections that we make in ways that I have never seen before. And I love it. It is one of the sort of driving things in my mind that makes us really unique, and and we should lean in on more as we go forward. I just we always look for ways to do such, but it is an awesome uniqueness that we have that we should never lose.
Alex, something that you've brought up many times and really helped champion, and I would say it's become the vision statement for Psi Upsilon, is a phrase, Psi U for life. And this is kind of what you're getting at here is, okay, we when you say fraternity, we all kind of now know the undergraduate stuff. And we still have to manage that and grow it and nurture it. But what are some of the programs that have got you excited that are really helping champion this vision for Psi U?
Well, first of all, I don't think that we are changing who we are by having this vision. I want to say that very, very candidly. We know who we are, and I think that the benefits of having more programming that deals with a lifelong membership do not in any way take away from the value of what 98% of our membership has experienced, which is a wonderful and fulfilling undergraduate experience. But I do think that there is value to looking at what is beyond that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry. It was my brilliance was interrupted by a spam caller, so I apologize. Look, I truly believe that in 2024 there is a perspective that is a lot longer and a lot more forward-looking around what am I getting into, and so for us in this world that we live, I believe that emphasizing the value at various junctures of your life, the value of this membership, only enhances the first early stages of your membership. In other words, if you are full in and buy in to the undergraduate experience, the active experience, everything that we've talked about for the last 150, 191 years, implicitly you were part of something for life. That for a long period of time it was implicit. And now we've moved to a period where people need to see the programming in order to really buy into the next stage of that engagement. And so I just think that we are doing we're not changing the organization. We're amplifying all that can be by virtue of having some programs like graduate scholarships, like a speaker series that allow us to come in and share perspectives of accomplished brothers, as well as a fellowship program, which is really kind of a unique program in the fraternal world, where people doing really great work for the common good and becoming emerging leaders in that industry can get some exposure to skills development, and we will pay for their continuing education. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to lead by example, which will in turn make all the undergraduates, or at least some of them, say, I want to be part of that organization because of everything that it will be for me in my life. And that's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, Alex, I agree wholeheartedly. Something that both of you and I was saying, what got us involved, what it got us inspired, people, and finding moments to find more people and share their stories is going to be absolutely paramount to Psi Upsilon. As you say, we're a fraternity of people, and finding ways to highlight it. One thing that, and I'll use this as a small example of something that's got me excited about new things that we're doing and doing things differently, but still keeping what, not changing who we are. Last year, we altered the Social Impact Fellowship and the Archons Academy to bring them together. We've got our chapter leaders who are leading our undergraduate chapters, and we have these mid-career, young career alums who are doing inspiring work. Let's get them in the same room and have them interact. And the energy that grows, and it was last year was the start of it, but the spark was clearly there, and we're doing this again. And I'm sure we'll have announcements later. But anyone in the Washington D.C. area, please join us in January for the event and see firsthand what this looks like. But absolutely, it's not changing; it's growing.
And for items that Tim, the three of us talk about all the time, it takes graduates to expand our chapters, right? We look at all these sort of ingredients for our health, and it is never going to be about one ingredient alone. And so the more we are able to attract engagement and continue participation within the broader organization in a world that is complicated and as weird as it is, I truly believe apathy is our biggest enemy. We and Tom, you do an omen's job of handling crises with any one of our chapters or pockets of the organization. But in the end, it's because we care. That is why we're here. And it's because we care that's why we will grow. And it's because we care that we will try new things to be the best of who we can be. And the Social Impact Fellowship, to your point, Tom, both expansion and the Social Impact Fellowship, all of the opportunities we've seen is because of people taking a little bit of risk and believing in who we are and what we can do. And there are countless examples. Clemson on the chapter housing front is an example, which I won't go into because I don't know the I'm not so great at the details and don't want to spread rumors. But it takes guts to help us in pioneering where we go. And for members of the organization that do that step up to lead, that stepped up to be chapter corporation presidents, that is, it is an example of the investment that we need to continue. And I know Tim and I talked about this because we need more investors. He does in many ways. I just look for them in Psi U. But my God, think of the people that are putting their time, talent, their treasure to make sure that we exist. It's a great thing.
I mean,
I'm sorry. One last thing, I completely agree with everything that's been said about this last like five minutes or so. One other thing that I think about when I think about Psi for life is kind of goes full circle back to what was talked about in the very beginning. It's just the friendships. I think the one of the things that I think about in my time as kind of a volunteer at a board level is having the opportunity to have made so many friendships with folks that I otherwise would never have met, without that. And I get so much more out of it than I feel like I put in, which is a fair amount. And all of us, I think we all feel the same way. We travel for Psi U, go to meetings and do a lot of work and all this stuff. But but at the end of the day, I think we all have a lot of fun with it too. And we get a lot out of it. The friendships that we've made with each other and with so many others who aren't on here. But I think having the opportunity and I think as Alex was saying, trying to amplify some of those positive things that this organization is already doing. I mean, there's small pockets of alumni brothers in different cities around the country who are already maybe meeting up and reconnecting with one another, or there's groups from different chapters that come together periodically for reunions, and they go back to visit their campus, or they meet in a different location and get together and sort of rekindle those bonds of friendship. I think finding ways to bring that and kind of increase the scale, to make sure have more folks involved and build more connections, I think only can yield amazing things for the organization and for all the individuals will the benefit from that. So looking really excited about the opportunity to kind of continue to do that in our roles here in leading the organization. And I think it's exciting to see where it can go with some of the new technologies and some of the new programs that we've been installing the last few years. It's very very cool to see that, to kind of start to blossom.
Something that you just said that got me thinking to something Alex said earlier. What are some of our largest threats out there? And Alex brought up apathy, and that's definitely part of it. But it's also just getting our message out there to everyone. I mean, that's why we're live streaming tonight, is we're trying to find new ways to be able to tell our story and connect. And one of the things that I'm proud of with Psi Upsilon and the work that I've seen, especially all of you do recently, is I think we're telling our story better, or we're trying, but making sure it's getting to everyone is truly a challenge. So thank you, everyone that's here tonight watching this right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are some of the what's next? What's something that's got you excited? We're coming up at our 8:30 mark, but we've got some cool stuff around the corner. So maybe, and I'm not trying to push anyone out of a leadership position in any sort of way, but when all this is said and done, when you're no longer president of the executive council or president of Psi Upsilon Foundation, what are you hoping to have seen accomplished by the time that's done?
Maybe I'll go first. For me, and Tom, it actually goes back to something you were just saying about how I think we need to do a better job of communicating what it is that we do. For me, beyond any particular program or level of engagement with members, I think the biggest thing that'll be kind of a sign of success will be, if more people ultimately understand, I guess, who all of us are in our different positions, what the organization and a number of volunteers do for the organization, and what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to do and grow as an organization. Because I think that level of understanding and appreciation for it, I think, is one of the best ways to combat some of the potential apathy that Alex was mentioning. So many, I think if the idea is, oh, well, Psi was something I did in college, like, it's, it's not part of my life now. I think that is a kind of is a very corrosive idea, and it's just flatly incorrect in my mind. And so I think understanding what it looks like, beyond those 3 or 4 years as an undergraduate, what that experience looks like, what understanding, what people are spending their time, talent, and treasure doing to promote this organization and grow it. I think all kind of helps feed into a better understanding of why we exist, what the benefit of being a member is, what the benefit of getting involved is. And look, I totally get that for the vast majority of folks out there, the idea of doing some of the things that the three of us do, and jumping on live streams and doing the stuff, they're like, oh, I don't have time for that. That's kind of crazy. But thank you for doing it. Hope. And at the end of the day, that's okay. I don't expect everyone to do some of the crazy things that we do because we love Psi U so much. But I think everyone has their talents, has their the ability to contribute greatly to this organization, and just by being who they are, and having an open mind, an open heart to help someone if they if we're able to make a connection with them, with someone else in the organization. I think there's so many amazing little things that we can do that will still embody all those positive things that we've been talking about. And so the more we can communicate that and sort of kind of open the minds of the folks out there listening, I think the better we'll be for
it. Everything Tim just said. I mean, I actually look. I think that a vision does not have measurement goals necessarily, by virtue of being a vision. So I don't know, 5 extra, board members and 25 extra this is not as important as moving in the direction where the entire organization feels a movement, right? A wave. And I think that for me, echoing Tim's comments, which is really wonderful to be in complete lockstep with all the, with leadership of the organization, we are all trying to make people closer to the organization, and segmentation so that not everybody has to be into any one thing to necessarily be a part of Psi U is very important to me, because we are a dynamic social organization. Some people are here for professional purposes, personal, fun, you name it, history, whatever it is. I actually think that we need to be moving forward on all those steps to be successful. I would say that on just my own sort of little island here, as Alex Senchak in Boston, Massachusetts, I look at it as, have we developed portals for entry, for engagement, for people? I cannot make you love Psi U, but I can open doors, or I can make doors for you to step through. And for me, the question is, every day when I talk to Jonathan and the other team members, and Tom, and I know you hear me all the time, but have we created enough openings for people, whether they be 18 to 28 to 88, have we made the openings that are meaningful for them to get involved, and therefore have a conversation with us and a dialogue, and hopefully get more involved? That to me is a little bit of what we need right now. And some of it is for Psi U. Some of it, like we need people to fill certain positions, but more so, the creative part of this is what do our people need? What do our members need that get them energized so they feel really encouraged by spending time on a Sunday night on a social media platform, or emailing their friends and telling them to come out to a event or whatnot. It's that motivation that I really think is interesting on a psychological level, and that's what actually keeps me really engaged, is those conversations of, I've never thought about Psi U, tell me more.
Yeah. And I think you're right, Alex. We definitely need to be creating those opportunities more. It's absolutely true. There's everyone who's watching this live stream, everyone who likes our Facebook post or posts a comment. That's them saying, hey, we care, and we need to just figure out some better ways to open up those avenues. And we're trying to do that. We've got more options. One thing I'm really excited about that we're working on is bringing back city clubs. I mean, talk about our history.
Mm-hmm.
Was absolutely something that is in our past, but something that would be very relevant today. It's you know, we need to meet and talk with one another and socialize with one another, agnostic of our, wherever we join Psi Upsilon, but in different cities. So, and we mean this, brothers. If any of you ever see an opportunity, it's like, oh, this economic symposium in Greenwich, like I'm in there, I could get to it, but I don't know if I'd want to go. No, it's for you. It's meant to be open door. Whether it's a perfect pint, the Fish Fund Venture Summit out in San Francisco, the Social Impact Fellowship Archons Academy reception in Alexandria. We need to be doing more of those things, and our bandwidth is only so much. So I appreciate those alums that have been reaching out to us. A couple of them saying, "Hey, I'm willing to put together a social event in my area. Can you help me do it?" Our answer is yes, absolutely. Please, thank you.
Yeah. Tom, I'll just say, I think that now more than ever, those opportunities are there. When you look at the both on the fraternity side with expansion and the other committees that exist that have members beyond the executive council. Certainly on the foundation side, with the number of committees that are basically non-board member. Back when I joined, Tim, you and I had this conversation. Being part of the board was the only real meaningful thing we had. And now you look at where we are. It's not perfect. There's a lot more to do, but I'll be damned. This is a much different organization, and I think that it's kudos to a lot of people who have been willing to take a little bit, a little chunk off of their calendar or plate to do something. And that's actually kind of the way I think the future of Psi U is. I think that we're more dynamic and we can be more. And I think that's kind of what we're thinking of, is not being as completely, state or federal and nothing in between, but looking at how we become more dynamic.
Alex, you brought up something there that gets people excited, and it's where is the undergraduate expansion happening? Where are the new groups, or where are we restarting? And it does get to it without involved alums, it won't be anywhere, because all our successful stories are absolutely with alumni involvement and making a difference. We're talking with students right now at Kenyon College who are very interested in restarting our IOTA chapter, which, interestingly enough, was also founded on November 24th. 1860. So happy anniversary to the IOTA alums that are with us. But honestly, it's never going to happen without involvement from alums helping it along. We've got a group of students restarting our Lambda chapter at Columbia right now. Getting them alumni involvement's been crucial because that's what they need to see for support. We've got I'm very lucky because I've got a great staff on the fraternity side that can help and can assist, but nothing makes a difference that more of a difference than that alum that's willing to take you out to dinner on their own and build that connection and ask you how you're doing. So as we're looking to expand new groups, because we've got invites back to some places that have been closed for a while. University of Minnesota, we hope to restart the Mute chapter in the coming calendar years. We want to be back at the University of Wisconsin. We would love to reopen any chapter of Psi Upsilon. I'm trying to think if there's anyone that I wouldn't answer that way, and there's not a single one. But it's going to take that alumni involvement to get it done. So we need to, the new programs that you're all championing to help find and connect with more people and grow our network. It's crucial going forward.
Yeah. Tom, when you think of engagement, I like, what is that? You mentioned a couple of things for a startup group, but I just wonder, for a brother who is local or can give time, and we have a lot of brothers who are not local but give time. I'm thinking of, the Pi has a number of brothers in the New York metro area that give time to the Syracuse chapter. But what does that look like to you?
Honestly, it's just building a connection. You will, and you're talking about an alumni advisor engagement here. What we mean, because I would say, first of all, engagement, everyone who's watching this video, you're engaged, whether you like it or not, you're on the list. But when we're talking about advising a chapter, working with a chapter, we do need someone to talk with honestly, the easiest way to separate this, and this is what some of our chapters do best, is kind of segmented out by role. Who's in charge of recruitment in the undergraduate chapter? Here's the alum who has that ability to network and connect with people. They're going to be the person you talk with. And that's a wonderful thing. It doesn't always have to be local. We can make connections over Zoom. We can talk on the phone. It's almost crucial, though, to build the trust and relationship early on. There's an in-person meeting, because we feel differently about someone after we shake their hands, for lack of a better term. That builds a different kind of relationship. But so much of the advising work can be done remotely, especially after those initial connections are made. But just checking in on how are you doing? What do you want to accomplish? What are you moving forward with? If someone's willing to take more of a leap, we actually have created something we call the Foundations of Excellence in the fraternity, which are, I believe we have 12 different programs with here's the slideshow, here's a model. If you want to do a recruitment workshop, you want to do a service-based workshop, you want to do a branding workshop, you want to do a organizational management workshop, risk management, bystander behavior, goal setting. We've got those workshops that we can put in your hands to make your lives easier as an advisor. Anyways, it doesn't always have to be that hard, though. It can be just picking up the phone in an undergrad. How you're doing can go an incredibly long way. All right, we've gone a little bit long, which I'm prone to do. But I wanted to open up. Was there any last comments, anything that any of you wanted to say before we moved along to our next segment?
No, other than to say that this has been great. I mean, I think the honestly love having these types of discussions with you. And I think we've all had these types of discussions with each other without the live stream and the camera rolling, but they are quite similar. To be honest, but no, this has been great, and I guess thank you both for all that you do. This season, Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. Definitely thankful for you all and the many folks. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to all the other volunteers, chapter advisors, board members, staff, everyone who works tirelessly to do all the things that we do here at Psi U, and really appreciate all of you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think for the next segment, Tim and I are going to disappear and we're going to pass it off to Alex. Oh, and it's
dangerous.
Working. Yeah, I know.
Very dangerous. Yeah, there. Kathy has joined. Good.
Yeah, I'm here. Hopefully, people can hear me soon.
So, with no break or any pause, I'll just say hi, Kathy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been all of 48 hours since I saw you last.
Is that real? Yeah, it is.
Well, yeah. So for everybody else, I was in the Atlanta metro region for some meetings on Wednesday, whatever it was, and I had the pleasure of having dinner with Kathy and a couple of the brothers in the downtown area. So we got to prep for this. Well, not really. We didn't really talk about this at all, actually. So, so first of all, Kathy, if you don't mind, introduce yourself and just say who you are.
All right.
Magenta girl.
What?
Magenta background.
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff behind me, so we're just going to ignore what it would look like otherwise. So I have been a member of Psi U since 2015 now. Since then, I have been a part of Psi U in so many different roles and positions, I feel like. But the big ones are after graduating, I joined Psi Upsilon Fraternity on the staff as a chapter leadership consultant and worked for Psi U for about a year and a half before leaving staff. And then I was able to eventually get back involved with my local alumni group, PUSOG, which I then joined as a board member. I helped plan the convention last year in Atlanta and the local events we hosted. And now I am off of PUSOG and have joined the executive council this past July as secretary. So that's the
glutton for punishment, I would say.
It's fun. Hey, I took a little bit of breaks between some things.
So I want to ask a question because your trajectory and your experience has how do you separate chapter to international office and both as a staff person, right, when advising and helping chapters not of your own, and then also now coming back on to the International Executive Council, but just a little bit about how you perceive that role as different than your chapter role as a member of the of PUSOG.
Yeah. So I think the big thing that I always feel like has motivated me to be part of both both so much is the fact that PUSOG is my home. Like my home chapter wouldn't exist without the national organization, and I've seen how much it can impact Psi U to be a part of the international organization, and all the different ways that can be great and good for someone.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I like you, I feel there is a difference, and it's there's no doubt that each one of them is highly valuable. Um, and also, if I can just add, and take your how you feel on this, but like an organization as small as ours versus say one that is huge, right? Comparatively, your role is much more closely integrated than say if you were to be structured on 250 chapters, right? And or like there's a lot more crossover, so it is different in an organization like ours. Likewise, also just your own, I'm just interested in kind of your take on personal advances, objectives, and goals as it pertains to your role, and in your history with the organization, and especially today. Like, why do this today?
So for me, a lot of it has been where I think the need is most. I want to see Psi grow and succeed. As an undergrad, I was able to go to convention and meet a bunch of alumni, and realized how much it could be a lifelong thing, and how cool that was, and how much positive impact it had on me. I wanted to make sure other people had that experience. So for me, where I've chosen to serve and sort of put my time has been based on where I thought it would be the most helpful. At the time that I was on staff, there was less people on staff. In general, it was just Tom before we brought on the 3 consultants. And then for a little bit, it went back to just being me and Tom. So it was definitely something where I knew that I was doing good. I was able to visit lots of chapters. I've visited easily half our chapters that are active at some point or another, and have been able to help them and talk to their undergrads and try to do what I can to see how we can help them improve, whatever that means to them. So from my perspective, when I jumped back sort of into local role, especially because of when we were hosting convention, I thought it was going to be more helpful to make sure our chapter was on the right track, because we had some things going on and we were just trying to figure out the finances of helping host convention, and I knew that we might need a little more legs on the ground, and I had experience doing convention work as a ex-staff member. So that was sort of a detour, because I knew after leaving the fraternity staff, I would probably want to eventually join the executive council. I just needed sort of like a break from the international before I went back into it. And for me, it's been always just how to help Psi be better and make sure everybody can have as good of experience as I did, if not better, and get all the different elements they could out of it. Whether that's career, whether that's the friendship, whether that's the, whatever it looks like for them, that they have a good experience.
So where do you see the biggest excuse my daughter in the background here. Where's the biggest opportunity for us that you see for us to do those things?
So I think right now we're doing a lot of good work with like city clubs and helping, sort of build up more continuous involvement where there isn't already a chapter, and also trying to figure out better ways to get alumni engaged and back involved, because especially I've seen our alumni drift in and out of involvement, and especially there's the, I think, classic like first 5 years after graduation, you show up at the house still some, you might come back to the campus, say hello.
Too often, usually too often, yes.
And then after that, it just goes, you don't see the fraternity necessarily anymore. And it's trying to figure out the ways that we can keep those people involved and keep them interested especially because I think there's so much value in, like y'all were discussing earlier,
Yeah.
the generational relationships and being able to interact with our older alumni and everyone getting to get to know each other is really nice.
Yeah.
It truly shows the depth and strength of Psi U in a way.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody who has bopped around a couple of different locations in the U.S., how do you see? How do we navigate the geographical divide, the various geographies that we both inhabit on a undergraduate chapter basis, but also more so importantly, like how do we involve people from all different locations in your mind?
Yeah, so some of that is virtual events like this. I think COVID sort of pushed us, like a lot of other organizations, into being able to do more digital stuff, which gets everybody to be able to be involved from everywhere. But also finding your way to stay connected with people locally, whatever that looks like for you, and knowing and sort of keeping track of when there's Psi U national events you want to get involved with, whether it's flying out to one or there happens to be one in your town or nearby, but just sort of trying to figure out where you want to connect with Psi U, whether it's with slowly forming a city club, or whether it's just having a group of brothers go out and hang out and then maybe try to give back to their chapter in some way when they have the time or availability, but sort of keeping those bonds and channels open to see when you can do what you can.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and the fact is that you're a great example of somebody who has navigated that without much prompting, right? And so, what are the resources as an alum that you see as most important for a person? I don't know, just how do you connect as a person now a few years out?
Yeah, I think part of it is knowing how to, if your chapter has a form of communication amongst itself. I know for us we use Slack, but that's very GT specific, so not very helpful there. But in general, I think figuring out who's involved, and especially I guess who you need to get connected with on a national level to figure out where you can help. So sometimes that's just emailing Tom and being like, hey, I'm an alumnus here and I would like to do stuff for Psi U. What can I do? I'm sure Tom will tell you something. But
he definitely will. He definitely will.
I'm sure. But it could also just be reaching out to your local alumni group and being like, hey, I'm interested in getting more involved. I'm thinking, whether you want to actually have an official position or not, there's always a way to help Psi U. It's not about, I think a lot of it has always been, it's not about how much you do. It's just showing up in the ways that you can. And that looks different for everybody, but it's okay that everybody is involved differently because that's just who we are.
No, it's very true, and I think one of the better lessons we can learn is that there's no one level or type of involvement, but we've got multiple ways for people to be involved, and that may not be so explicit in some of the historical ways that people have been involved, but now in 2024 we really do. Can you talk a little bit more about how your career has intersected with Psi U, and just you can determine how much you want to devolve here and share, but has there been a post your being an active member that beyond your active time as a staff person that has shaped your career and sort of how you perceived Psi U? Let's put it that way.
So for me, a lot of my involvements after, I guess, so my career has been a very interesting trajectory of job hopping. I'm in computer science, so naturally it's just comes with the territory almost. And a lot of that, I feel like I've learned a lot about being able to sort of find my place in different roles. And I think that really has helped me in Psi U as well, because that's sort of something that I'm not afraid to jump into something new because I've done it a lot now. And we just being able to experience different work and different things over the time has definitely, I think, shown me, I don't know how to phrase it, but like shown me more about how, I guess, everyone interacts, and then all the also how much it can help you career-wise, getting all the career feedback I have over the years and getting alumni who have looked over my resume again and again. And then just knowing that by being connected with Psi U's, I have connections to so many different people and places. It always, it may not always help directly, but it also can be nice to like know that it's out there, whether it's just as a support or whether it's to be able to ask for advice. You can always find someone in your field, and that's always super helpful.
Couldn't agree more. I think the somebody said something to me maybe I don't know 2 years ago that the when you realize you need a network, it is too late. And this idea that you have to curate your network and work at it, not because of a immediate need, but because it will be beneficial in the future, and it's really important. And I think it's sometimes lost amongst us all that the immediate urgent need is not the reason to keep in touch with people and to be friendly and keep in touch with them. So last question I have for you is about where you see the future of the organization. It's an easy question about the future of Psi U and just an easy, but pontificate for just a few minutes, if you will, about where you see the organization going that excites you most.
I think the thing that has been the most exciting to see has been, as we start to re-expand and reopen chapters, getting more alumni re-involved, and just seeing more involvement and people coming back in to involvement and finding ways to reach out to people and sort of meet them at their level and get them back involved. It's been really exciting over the years to watch as new people show up to events that are not undergraduates. So people who show up for the first time and I've never met them before, but they're older alumnus, and it's like, wow, you got back, you got engaged, you found a way back, and that is so exciting. And finding those occasions more and more, I feel like, has been happening, and it's just such a good thing to see, because it's, I think, showing how much we're continuing to be able to utilize our alumni and sort of use that to bolster our undergraduate programs.
Yeah, agreed completely. It's like rising tides lift all boats, right? There's just such it's so amazing to see when that synergy does come together, and you see generations combine. It's amazing.
Yep.
Well, so did I not ask a question you want to answer?
Did you not ask a question? I
You're allowed.
can't.
This is your moment. Say whatever you want right now.
I can't think of anything. No. I'm sure there's
guess
something
not.
out there I could talk about.
All right. So last question, and then we're going to go. Explain your background.
Explain my background. What?
Your background, right behind you.
Oh, my background.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the only one that was plainish and not obviously looking like a hotel, of the options of background in this app. And if I turn this off, you'll see my messy living room because that's where I work from.
Can you give us 20 seconds of your background?
Let me see. Oh, of course it's going to be difficult. I would.
It doesn't want to see it either.
No, it's decided that you can't see it. Oh, I found the spot where I can change it.
There it is.
There we go.
It's yeah. Oh, come on. Are you serious?
It's not the worst, but I also have my dog running through occasionally, and
that's human.
She's just hanging out at the couch right now, though, so she's
wonderful. So, and then we're going to close out and just say you are going to be in DC with us in a couple of weeks, correct?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to look forward to seeing you there, and with a whole lot of other brothers, I hope. And with that, we'll close out this. We're 3 minutes behind, I believe. But thank you so much, Kathy. And this is fun. I'll always enjoy getting to banter with you about various things.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Tom has real questions for you now.
Does he have questions for me, or is he just doing the outro?
And I hope I'm just doing the outro, and I just did not realize that this works very stealthily, where I'm like, oh, all of a sudden I'm back in the live stream. I did not realize.
When I joined, I was like, oh, it just happened. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and do the outro because I believe I believe we're done for the evening. So we've talked about where we started, where we are, and where we're going next. So at this, I'll end by saying thank you. First, to point out behind the scenes, you've seen a number of people on this live stream. One of the people you have not seen is Jonathan Chaffin, our director of engagement, who does all the thankless work, putting all this and, quite frankly, pretty much all the events we do together. But nothing could be accomplished without him. Thank you so much for all you're doing, Jonathan. I truly, truly appreciate it. And thank you to all our staff. On the foundation side, we have Beth Ann Taylor, Jay Reemden-Schneider, Vicki Manfred doing some great work along with Jonathan. On the fraternity side, I am blessed to have Keith Willard, Stephen Exley, Travis Smith, and Justin Sines all helping us out in various roles. Thank you so much to all our volunteers, Alex, Tim, and Kathy for joining us tonight. But all of our board members on the Executive Council and Foundation do so much for Psi Upsilon. And then everyone who's involved at the chapter level, because really, we couldn't accomplish anything without all of your hard work. And I'm not going to spend here all night and name everyone who's involved, because there's so many of you, but truly, truly, I appreciate it. So with this, I'll close by going back to our founding and thinking that 7 young men at Union College pledged to start a new society on November 24th, 1833. And 191 years later, over 49,000 people have initiated into our fraternity from 50 campuses in the United States and Canada. In 191 years, that amazes me, that we've come so far, and that those 7 young men, when they were getting together, probably had no idea that someone would be in charge of their fraternity and live streaming on social media channels sometime in the future. So thank you to everyone who joined us tonight, to all our 49,000 members. And I'll leave us with closing and parting that's fitting for Psi Upsilon, that we talked about a little bit earlier tonight. So I say to you all, good night, thine cordially. All right.